is my agenda. I'm aware that there's a few other clubs who are invited tonight, so not to leave anyone out.
210 people.
People's logos in there.
Yes, pick up that wild card, please.
Okay, so here's our agenda for tonight. I'm going to just introduce myself. We're going to talk about safety. And then we're going to talk about forward lighting, which is your headlights. And then we're going to talk about signal lighting. Okay. So my name is Blair Weiss. I'm vice chairman of the New England MGT Register. I've been vice chairman for 5-ish years. I'm also a product development engineer at AMS Osram, known in the United States as Sylvania.
Blair, I'm gonna hit the mute all button. I don't mean to mute you, but there's some background noise, so you're gonna have to unmute your. Thank you.
Where did I drop off?
Sylvania. The word
Okay.
Sylvania.
Okay, so I'm a product development engineer in Sylvania, also manufacturing engineering manager. Been there for 16 years. I have 5 patents in automotive lighting. I live in Peterborough, New Hampshire with my wife, Leslie. My first car was a BGT, 1970 BGT, and I scan eBay every day for it. Okay, so first step is regulations. In the United States, we follow MVSS 108, and that regulation is for not only lighting, but brakes and bumper height and reflective tape on tractor trailers. It's the whole, everything to do with safety on the road, and the lighting regulations are in it. In Canada, it's called CMVSS 108. However, it's only for, as far as I know, for lighting, only for OEMs. So they regulate what new car manufacturers put on the vehicles, but you're allowed to do anything afterwards. So whereas we're talking about LED retrofits and lighting in Canada, you go down to Canadian Tire and buy whatever you want and put on your car. It's that simple. In the EU, the ECE regulation is what's called R37 for forward lighting and R7 for signal lighting. And I don't know if there's, I assume we have some Canadian viewers tonight. I don't know if we have any European viewers tonight. And there's a little topic about Germany in here, but raise your hand if you're from Europe and I can talk a little further on that. You can see MVSS 108 was enacted in 1966. So prior to that, there really was no regulation on lighting. So that's kind of like a loophole for us. Most of our cars were made prior to 1966, so there really technically is not a law. So if you have a annual safety inspection in your state and the 16-year-old kid says, well, you have LED headlights and blah, 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 you tell him, I don't care. Or you tell him your grandfather because your car is old enough that it doesn't require any modern regulations. Good luck. Quick bit about what we're replacing. It's a halogen lamp. Halogen lamps are, a coil made of tungsten encased in a glass envelope, and there's a gas inside the glass envelope, and we call these halogen lamps. When in reality, halogen is not the gas. Over here we have the fill gases. They're all noble gases: helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon. There's also radon. I can't convince anyone in my company to try radon. It has a very short half-life. In 2 weeks, it's no longer radon, it's something else, so it really wouldn't work. But that's only the fill gas. When they call lamps halogen, it's not really the fill gas is not the halogen. The halogen is in the second column over, and that's what we use is bromine. And in the halogen cycle, the lamp turns on, the tungsten gets really hot, like maybe 3,000 degrees. it evaporates and then wants to stick to your bulb wall. So if you let it go long enough, your bulb wall would be black. And
Blair, I can do this
John,
again.
Can you do it?
Yep, there. The second, okay, unmute yourself. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Background noise.
If you let the tungsten burn long enough, your bulb would be black chrome. And
There, you're on mute and a bunch of people are being ugly about unmuting themselves. Please start back with what the bromine does.
okay, I actually haven't gotten to the bromine yet. So if you, without bromine, all the tungsten would evaporate off the coil. It would stick to the inside of the bulb wall. It would turn blackish, chromy kind of look. It's kind of neat, but it wouldn't last. Your lamp wouldn't last long. So bromine will bond with the tungsten atoms and call it a tungsten halide. And then that tungsten halide is attracted to heat, and it just aims for that coil and drives back into the coil and redeposits the tungsten into the coil. So this is what's called the halogen cycle, and it's a misnomer to think that the halogen is the gas. It's actually a noble gas, and that's where the halogen part comes in. Anyhow, think of the coil and the position of the coil relative to the base. The coil is centered up with the base, okay? This is the regulation and how it works. And what we have to deal with is the coil has to be in a specific location within, relative to the base, axial to the base, no longer, no shorter, no narrower, no wider, okay? So, sorry if this is showing on my screen also, but I can move that away. But what happens is, here's the nature and why the NHTSA's pulling LEDs off the market is because they can't meet this specification. If you, by definition, if you have an LED, the LED doesn't fit in its box. So therefore, it is
Right.
can't be compliant. Okay. So what is an LED? An LED is it's a high-powered LED plus a driver plus the base to put it into your reflector plus a seat to get rid of heat. Sorry, I'll do all this and then I will okay. This is what an LED is made of. Okay, earlier, say 4 or 5 years ago, this is kind of what the LED Rs, and I call them Rs, LED retrofits look like. They were big and clunky. They had, you know, one big high-powered LED. If you remember back to this thing is only, you know, 5-6 millimeters long, whereas these, you know, this is like 20 millimeters or like almost an inch long. The whole thing is packed with LEDs. This is a singular one. This one's probably 5 millimeters in diameter, not 1.5 millimeters. So they tried. Okay, all of these are made in China, no doubt about it. It's practically a Lego kit. If you get on Alibaba, you can find all these pieces, mix and match, make your own, become an LED manufacturer. But the effect of those is, so this is some beam patterns taken about 4 years ago by my intern at the time, and he didn't really aim the light as we will tonight, but this is what the headlight looked like in a real reflector. And here's some of the, here's the same reflector with the same lights just cast upon the wall. This one right here, you can see my mouse okay? Pointing to this dim one. This dim one is actually this lamp right here. You know, as impressive as it looks like a corn cob. It's actually the worst. Okay, so this is what we were dealing with a few years back. So why so horrible? Once again, a reflector was designed with a coil of a specific size, about 1.5 millimeters, which is, you know, 1/8 of an inch in diameter, by about 4.5, 5 millimeters long, which is like 1/4 of an inch. And mathematically, it's placed in the center of the parabola. So it's in the focal point of the reflector. The Chinese engineers come along and they're like, oh, we put light bulb, we put LED on base, you turn it on, it make light. But they didn't put it in the right place. And what happened is it doesn't make light. It makes a reflection where it was never intended to be. And it's just, it doesn't work. You know, it's either dimmer or it's usually dimmer. It's never better than it should be. You can only get worse. You can never get better. Okay. So getting back, this is why it's wrong, because these corn cob looking lights don't fit into this box. And this box is what the reflector engineer uses to define a light source, and says, all right, well, it's going to be right here. It's going to be, if you can see right here, it says 31.5. So that's 31.5 millimeters from the reference datum, which is be about here, up to the center of the lamp, which is about here, the light source. And sometimes that might even be right. That might be wrong, too big, too small. They didn't work well. Okay, so what do we do? You can get online, you can go into stores. You can buy a 7-inch round with LEDs specifically designed for it. So an optical engineer designed this round LED headlight with reflective surfaces in mind, using computer software, designed it to work right. But I don't know about you, I wouldn't put something like this in the front of my TV. It doesn't belong there. It maybe a Triumph owner might, I'm not sure. But an MG owner definitely wouldn't. They're expensive. With all LEDs, of course, John was talking about polarity earlier. They are polarity sensitive unless they have circuitry to fix that. I can think of one car, the Datsun Z cars, the older Z cars. They actually feed the power through what the standard is, the ground pin, and then switch the high and the low beam. And these will not work without some mucking around with the wiring harness. And then the heat sink needs to fit in your bucket. So if you have a humongous heat sink like the back of the bucket there, it might not fit in your bucket. Things to be aware of. Or you can do it yourself. So to do it yourself, which is what this discussion is about, you buy yourself a set of reflectors and the corresponding LED module. I'm just going to shut this off for 1 second.
And do that if we want to shred in there, if we want to get it out.
Okay, so you guys can see me. This would be a reflector that I'm referring to. So this is a Lucas PL 700, fancy dancy, got the bars in the front, and you put a normal H4 into it.
I don't think, Blair, you're showing what you think you're showing. We're still seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, I stopped the video of myself. Thanks. Let me not share anymore and stop my sharing. I'm sorry. So this is what I'm referring to when I say this is a reflector. This is the Lucas PL700. And what happens is it either comes with or you buy an H4 and you place it in there, and that's how they work. Now, doing it yourself, instead of using a halogen lamp, you replace it with an LED, plugs in the back the same way, and you're off and running. Now I'm going to get back to my presentation. Okay, are we back to presentation mode?
Nope.
No, not quite.
Ah. Now are we back to presentation mode?
Yep,
Yep.
that's good now.
Okay, sorry about that. It lets me know not to drop the presentation and try to do anything. So this is what can go wrong. So we're gonna purchase a reflector from somewhere. We're gonna purchase some H4s from somewhere, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them together. But once again, we have polarity to think about. We have the heat sink to think about, and the heat needs to be removed from the bucket. That should be okay. You're going to heat up the heat sink. The heat sink's going to heat up the air in the bucket. The air in the bucket is going to heat up the back of the bucket, and hopefully that energy leaves the back of the bucket. I haven't had an issue with it yet, so let's just assume it works. Okay, so this is software I use. It's called Light Tools. It's about $50,000 a seat. So it's not cheap, but what this allows us to do is model how a lamp would work, or how a reflector would work. So on the left here, we have a lamp, the pink item, inside a reflector, what appears to be a mustard color. The black lines are what's, traces of light. This is a couple hundred lines. When we do it for realsies, we'll run 20 million, 30 million traces to really get a good idea of where the light goes, and it helps us fix models. And when light is bouncing through solid objects, then we know the model's wrong. The surface needs to be refined. But this is what happens, and then you goes through a secondary lens, maybe, which would be the facets. If you're looking at the front of your headlight and you see a little prescription with little facets in it, that would be the secondary lens. And then blast on the right-hand side, on the wall, you have an image of the coil. Okay. What happens with LED retrofit lamps is they're two-sided. They're not 365 degrees like a coil. They're basically two printed circuit boards back to back with an LED on them. And really what it looks like is this. Do you see the two hot spots down road? That's what an LED creates. And if you're driving at night recently, look at oncoming traffic and you'll notice sort of what like a cat eye effect, where you're looking at their headlights, and in the center, the top and bottom might be a little darker than the sides. And that's a pretty good indication that they're running a retrofit in their, it might be fine for them, but it's probably not fine for you. And that's why you're staring at it, because it's bothering you. Or if you're like me and you do it for a living, you stare at every headlight you see. Okay, so when we did this at Kimberfest, I stopped the presentation and I stood up and we lit up a bunch of lamps on the wall, And I was thinking about that and I'm like, how am I going to do this online? So this is in fact a much better presentation. I took all my lamps and went down to the lab downstairs in a room underneath my office and lit them up and measured them. We have a $250 million goniometer that can, what it does is it scans the lamp up and down, left and right, and measures all of those light rays and plots them out for us and measures their value in lux. Lux is a spread over a square meter, just for a term, a unit. So let's start on that. I had 4 different ones. Well, actually 3 different reflectors plus a control. You can see it says Wagner halogen. I didn't actually mean to bring that one to work. If anyone shows up at my house with a Wagner lamp, I pull it out of their car and replace it on the spot because that's how I am. I keep 6024s at the house, so if you need headlights, swing by and we upgrade anyone who comes in if you have anything other than a Sylvania. But besides that, so I have item reflector B, C, and D, and you couldn't really make them out, but I blocked them anyhow. Didn't make any attempt to block out C. Everyone knows what that is. What I'm not sure is if this set is actually a Lucas reflector, or if there's, I'll say, for lack of a better word, counterfeits or reproductions, or I'm not really sure where they came from. They actually came from a friend who pulled in with his TR3, and he probably had a bad ground, but they looked horrible. So we replaced them, and he's going good, but he left his headlights at my house, these PL700s. So what we did, and then we have the different light sources. So we have the control, the halogen one, and then we have light source B, C, and D. And I have these 2 dedicated 7-inch round 6024s. One is an LED and one is an HID. We don't make the HIDs anymore. They were probably 10 years ago. They fell out of favor when LEDs came around. I think they're around $400 a pair, so they weren't cheap, but I'd love to find the other one to match this one. I only have one, so until I get a motorcycle that takes 7-inch round, I'll just have this one. Okay, so this is my control reflector. This is what we're going to be looking at. So this is the basement, my lab. On the lab, we have a horizontal line taped off and what appears to be a roadway. Okay, does that look like a roadway to everybody?
It does now.
Okay, and then in the center, those are the sensors that reads the light. The top one, the top little circle, is actually a hole, and there's a 75-foot long tube in that hole, and at the end of the tube is a camera to measure. So what that tube does is it sort of culminates the light. So only the light that's going perfectly straight down that tube gets to the sensor, and everything else doesn't get picked up by the sensor. But what we'll do is we'll take this downstairs, we'll take a light downstairs and we'll aim it on the wall. And this machine does all the math for us, and it will re-aim it to the best possible location, and then scan it and record all the measurements. And that's how that works. Overlaying it, and I didn't do a great job overlaying it, but this is, you're going to see a grid I just put on. And what that grid is, you have your 0 horizontal and 0 vertical. And then it's all divided up into degrees. So you have degrees left, degrees right, degrees up, degrees down. And then you have some zones, and we'll have points, which you have the green points, which are critical points in the regulation, you know, and then there's zones, and it'll say, and so the average of zone 3 can be no more than this, and the average of zone 4 can be no more than that. And that's how the regulation is written. So what we'll do is we'll take a lamp, we'll put it in the machine scans the lamp up, down, left, right, and then finds the best fit sort of to comply and spits out the data. So this is what we're looking at when we're going to look at all the images in a few seconds. We are looking at it in this manner from degrees left, right, up, down, across what it would look like from the highway. So that's what we're looking at. So here's reflector B. We're going to look at it, and with the top image being the control, the regular sealed beam that we're trying to replace. And this is, I'm not to disparage the competition. I don't even think Wagner is actually in business anymore, but I'm not going to disparage it. Let's just call it okay, because according to the computer, it's a passing beam pattern. So it is, we'll call it the standard. So the left-hand column is the low beam. The right-hand column is the high beam. Now, a lot of times I won't even concentrate on the high beam because the high beam is just, it's a shotgun. You're just throwing as much light down road as possible. And you don't really care where it's going because you shut it down if you have oncoming traffic. Okay, so what I focus on for quality is the low beam, because the low beam is really what the reflector was designed against, and the high beam is just what you have. So, okay, let's look at, we have the control on top, and we're looking at the left-hand column. Light source B fills the screen, no doubt about it. But it's also filling the oncoming traffic, this lane, just as well as it's filling the driving lane. Unlike the control is filling the driving lane without really filling the oncoming traffic. So light source B is filling the oncoming lane as well as it's filling the driving lane, okay? And it has, notice the light up on top of your horizon. It's a little dimmer than almost a cutoff. There's light seeping up above the horizon, okay? Light source D, okay, we have light in the driving lane. We have a little less light in the passenger lane. We do not have much light above the horizon. We have a little kick up into here where maybe your street sign might be, but I think that's just noise is what it is, okay? And then we have light source C in this reflector. We have light here. We have a little less light here. We don't have much light above the horizon. We have a little spot right here. So overall, if I had reflector B, I would probably want to put light source D into it, just as getting a good sort of healthy light down road, okay? This is what's called an isoplot. If you were a bird flying above the lamp or car, this is kind of the beam pattern that would be projected onto the surface of the road. So the top, if you see this, there's two solid white lines. So that'd be the white lines on each side of the highway. And then the dotted line is the center line of the road. And so you see there's light here in the near field, but down road, you're just occupying your lane, okay? Now this point right here, where the light blue turns to dark blue, that is the 2.32 lux cutoff. So remember, lux was lumens per square meter. At that 2.232 lux is what we kind of say, that's it. That's pretty much the end of your visible, what you're going to see. You're not going to see a deer. You're not going to see another a jogger wearing black, this is why, okay? And that point is out here around 67 meters. So just call that yards for us. Just call it, 180 feet, 200 feet, where it is about. Now, this one with light source B, the extent is still at the same distance. So you can still see the same jogger at 180 feet as this control. However, you're seeing that you're putting an awful lot of light over in the oncoming traffic lane. And that's not what we really, really want. All right, so we're putting the light, 40 meters. This bright green is where that's like your annoying level. Okay. Say on this pot light source, your annoying level is 35 meters. And this annoying level is like 40 meters. So we can see a little further out into our lane, but we're still going to annoy the oncoming traffic. Maybe not as much, maybe, but that's what's going to happen. Okay. Next is reflector C, with the control on top, same hotspot. What do I see here? I see with light source A, I see pretty much uniform, little lower. Now you could say, hey Blair, why don't you just turn this light, just tip it up slightly and get this line up on the horizon. Well, the computer said that this is a better spot because if I tip this line up, I'm going to tip this line up also, and that's putting light in this upper region where it shouldn't be. So this is the best spot for it. So we're a little bright here on our driver's side or the driving side, little less light down there, but not really like the difference between these two, right? Same goes with this light source. We got a lot of light. We had so much light that it had to tilt down to make it work outright. So we're actually not going to we're going to see in 1 second. I don't think we're going to get the down road on light source light source D as we do on light source A with this one. Well, we do, but we're looking in the bushes. See, we're outside of the driving lane. We're illuminating the bushes and the trees. I'm really not sure what causes the interaction between these light sources and this particular reflector that's causing it to drift to the right like that. I mean, I guess it could be worse. It could be better than drifting to the left, which would be the oncoming traffic. But that's what we're seeing if we were a bird flying over this reflector. Here's reflector D. So what do we see here? We see, well, we're illuminating our driving lane. We're also slightly illuminating the oncoming traffic with light source A. With light source D, we're doing pretty much the same. However, you notice this black spot, black spot here, and this is 2 hot spots, right? We're dark in the middle, 2 hot spots. And if we remember, back to this simulation, now we know where these 2 hot spots are coming from. It's actually imaging both sides of the retrofit, and it's ending up down road on us. Okay, so if I were going to use this reflector, I don't know that this is a good one. I might choose one of the other 2 reflectors. All right, and And this dark spot might tell us which reflector it is. I think that's the PL 700 with the medallion right in front of it. I think that's what the medallion does. Okay. So, oh, it's not the PL 700. I know which one this one is. So we have a forked tongue is what we have. And so I definitely probably wouldn't want to go out on this reflector. We're illuminating the oncoming traffic just as well as we're illuminating our down road. So it's not super great. Okay. This is the dedicated module. So this is the LED version, and I believe these are obsolete too. So it's not really a sales pitch, just showing you what a dedicated reflector can do for you as far as beam pattern. We have, your intensity in your driving lane, with less intensity in the oncoming traffic. Same with the Xenarc, intensity in the driving lane, no intensity on the oncoming traffic. Interesting, you see these hot spots out on the sides are these. So I don't know, you can, whatever's out there, exit ramp or something, but this is what a legal LED looks like. So the whole point of this part of it is, you went out, you purchased a reflector, you purchased an LED to put into it. You need to kind of look at what you're putting, on the side of your garage. You close the door, look at what the image looks like and say, am I blinding oncoming traffic? Because ultimately that's really what we care about. We don't want a car going 60 miles an hour at you where the guy has to turn away and look the other direction. That's all well and good that you can see, 1,000 feet down the road, perfect. You can't see 1,000 feet, but say 300 feet, 200 feet, 85 meters, 90 meters. But that's only half the equation. The other half is not to blind the guy coming at you at the same speed you're going at him. Okay. These are the actual measurements. So this is real data. So this is our control. None of the points failed. So we talked earlier about the grid, 10 degrees up to 90 degrees up. The max amount of flux you're allowed is 125 flux units of candelas. So, the control will be 104, almost 400, 4 times, 3 times, 2.5 times, so it's too much light above the horizon. This version, we're 1 degree up to 1 degree right. We're allowed 1400 max. We're killing it for lumens. Okay, so this is the measurement data. What I talk to in words is the real words, the real numbers. Okay. We do benchmarks. So we've taken this was a few years ago, and some retrofits will work. So
no, we're not going to do that.
This is one specific reflector with few types of LEDs that we tried, and we can get it to pass, marginal pass, but then there's LEDs that just don't pass. They just play havoc with the reflector as it was designed. Now I spoke slightly about the ECE. So in order for us to sell retrofits in the European Union, they're a lot stricter than in the US or Canada. We can go to any VIP or O'Reilly's or Menards or even Lowe's or Home Depot and buy one of these things and put it in our car. even our daily driver. In Germany, if you get pulled over and the police realize what you're doing, you need to provide a certificate for any aftermarket item. That's for tires, for wheels, for exhaust, for shocks. If that manufacturer doesn't certify that the component that you've installed is as good as factory, that's a ticket or a tow. I'm not really sure of what the implications, is it a ticket or a tow, but it's illegal, and our German friends are very law-abiding citizens, and if something's illegal, they wouldn't think about doing it. Funny story, the first time I was over there, went to fill up the car before bringing it to the airport, and it wasn't, you didn't put your credit card, you just pumped it, and then you go into the office and you pay. And like, what? And I said, what, you don't pay first? And he goes, no. I'm like, well, what happens if someone drives away? And he says, well, that's illegal. No one would do that. And that's just the way that the German culture is. So anyhow, we are certifying these lamps one by one. So we have to get a reflector or get a car. Say we want to, I believe they started with Volkswagens because they're popular in Germany. And they went through every model of Volkswagen from now to 10 years back, or that took halogen lamps, and they tried the bulbs and they did a measurement much like this. And if it passed, they would issue a certificate with those lamps. And if they failed, you just cannot buy or sell those lamps for that particular vehicle. And it's expensive for us, but it's the only way we can sell retrofits in Germany. And then hopefully the rest of the EU will accept that, but that's the way it is. Okay, so done talking about beam patterns. I want to talk quickly about some lighting claims that you'll see. A nice white light is about 6,000 Kelvin. And a low beam is about 800 to 1,000 lumens. A high beam is 1,500 to 1,900 lumens. So if you are looking for a lamp that advertises, say, 3,000 lumens and 24,000 Kelvin, it's just a lie. And what I see is, well, you're 1,000. Well, I'm 1,100. Well, you're 1,100. I'm 1,200. Well, you're 12,000 lumens. Sorry, Kelvin. Well, I'm 13,000 Kelvin, and they just one up themselves to death until it's ridiculous claims. So no names, no blame. But I just pulled these off of eBay this morning. This person is selling a 330,000 lumen LED kit for 20 bucks. It probably isn't 330,000 lumens. Likewise, this person is selling a 30,000 20-watt lamp for 40 bucks. I guarantee you it's not 30,000 lumens. Just to be aware of these things. Okay. Same goes with the color temperature and the one-upsmanship. I pulled this off of another ad, and you can almost see that these numbers were sort of added after the fact, and they just one-upped the last guy. You know, the 3,000, the 6,000, the 8,000, the 4,300K look about right. That purple color is more like 12,000, and the blue is more like 10,000. And they just one-upmanship, and they just changed the graphics, and now they're selling you 58,000 Kelvin lamps, which much be better than 6,000 Kelvin. But what you're looking for is about 6,000 Kelvin. That's the white color of an HID. Okay. What I do is I will always do one at a time and check it. So this was my mini, and I installed some fogs of a higher color temperature to match the HIDs. So you look on this side, and nice white light, and over here was the halogens. And I mean, Mini Cooper should have done that from the factory. because it just didn't match the HIDs, but we can fix that. Okay. In the Kimberfest, we talked about alignment. So I gave a quick presentation on how to align it, but I found this great YouTube video, and that guy might look familiar. So if you're, after you've installed your LED headlights, head over to YouTube and search for John and headlight alignment, and you'll come up with a video on how to align your headlights on an MG, which is, watching a video is much better than listening to me. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about, and I'm going to leave time for questions at the end. Next thing we're going to talk about is the signal lighting. So you'll have amber in the front, or amber and red in the rear. So amber or red is allowed in the rear for signal. Amber is only allowed in the front. Red is not allowed in the front of the vehicle. That's reserved for emergency vehicles. And then amber didn't really start until 66, and that was to give contrast against the headlight. Okay. With a normal light, you have sort of polarity insensitive versus an LED. They can be polarity sensitive, or the cheaper ones do not have diodes in the controls to fix the polarity. More expensive ones do, but what you normally do is just take the lamp out, flip it 180 degrees and put it back in, and it should work. If it has sort of a keying that doesn't allow it to go back in, like if those pins are not at 180 degrees, you're going to have to screw around with your bullet connectors and to switch the polarity. Okay. Also, what matters is the type of reflector that you're putting it in. Say this lamp on the left-hand side is a true reflector. So it needs light to go backwards into the reflector to bounce forward. So there are types of LEDs that have the LEDs are backwards facing, so they'll go into the reflector and then forward. Thank you, Ed Cook, for use of this image. I found it on your website. The type of
Looks familiar.
King of the Road light sources that we use in our fenders, they need a forward emission sort of retrofit, something like that, because there is really no reflector behind that lens. It's just whatever light comes out through that lens. So pay attention to what you're putting it in, whether it needs backward facing or forward facing. Okay. And finally, this is actually the question that started this presentation. On John's call a few weeks back, we were talking about why we put red LEDs behind a red lens. And a white LED, we don't have a phosphor that is white. What they are is they're blue LEDs with a yellow phosphor. And what happens is it mixes and creates white, but it's not really white. What it is there's a big peak of blue, green, and yellow, and there's a little red. Versus halogen, you have blue, greens, yellows, and reds throughout the spectrum. There's actually a lot of red in a halogen lamp, and that's heat. You know, towards up here now, it's no longer red, it's infrared, and that's the heat that comes off our lamps. So putting a white LED behind a red lens is a little red comes out, but not as much as that's intended. So that's why we put a red LED behind a red lens. I mean, I know you go to the store, you see a white LED, you figure my lamp I'm replacing is clear, therefore it's white. I'm going to buy a white LED. Good intention, the physics don't work. So if you're going to replace a brake or a tail that's red, replace it with a red LED. If you're going to replace a amber one, use an amber LED or white. Only goes behind white. If you put a white behind amber, you get like a muted yellow, not really yellow, but a very muted color. So color behind lens, the takeaway from that. Okay. One reason to put your LED lights on is for safety. They will light faster. When you put electricity to a tungsten coil, it has to warm up before it can incandesce. Whereas when you put electricity or current to an LED, it just turns on. And it turns on about 0.2 of a second faster. And at 60 miles an hour, that's about 20 extra feet of stopping distance you have. 20 extra feet is not a lot, but it's more than nothing. So there is a safety aspect to it. So takeaways, in my combination of off-the-shelf sort of reflectors that I had, and in an aftermarket H4, I couldn't get one to really pass. Okay. And then if you notice, there was that PL 700 with a halogen lamp did not pass either. So I'm still unsure about this reflector. I don't know if it's a real Lucas product or if it is a reproduction. I didn't buy it. My friend bought it or received it. So I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's Lucas, maybe it's a reproduction. I'm really not sure. Okay. Be careful of marketing claims. Align your headlights and match your LED color to the lens that should have come in from it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and let's see. Let the questions begin.
Blair? Blair?
Yes.
It's Fort. Question. If I convert over to an LED, is there anything else I have to do downline to run the LED? I mean, will my generator run the LED?
So normally LEDs draw less current than their halogen counterparts. So whereas your 7-inch round steel beam, this is I don't know, 55 watts, whereas one of these could be 35 watts. So it's actually less of a load on your wiring harness and your generator than what they were designed for. So nothing like that. Sometimes, as I said, you have to mess with the polarity. One thing with the A, I changed one side of it and left, I think, them both disconnected. I took out both sealed beams. I put an LED in and it wouldn't turn on. And I'm like, oh, geez, and I'm getting out the meter and screwing around with it. And it didn't turn on until I plugged the headlight back in. So the ground path went through both headlights. I don't know that car is correct. I don't think it's correct. And because it worked, I let it go, and we'll dig into it at another time. But other than polarity, you should be okay for it.
Thank you.
But one thing about the auxiliary lights, I believe someone might have said it earlier, they'll flash really fast, and that's because the contacts, the flasher that creates that flashing, is detecting a lamp out situation. So you have two choices. One is to buy a flasher relay that is specifically for LEDs, so it doesn't flash. That's actually a safety feature. Flashes fast to let you know you have a lamp out. But because the LEDs don't draw enough current, it's the same as missing a bulb. So that's why it'll flash. So you buy either a new flasher or sometimes there's what they call a ballast resistor. You put in parallel and it just puts a load on your electrical system to simulate the load that a halogen light would. So it seems wasteful. If you're using less current, you have a better light source, but then you're just consuming that same current in the form of heat. So it seems silly, but you got to do what you got to do.
Blair, the Napa sells an EL12 and an EL13. Those are negative. They got to be hooked up in negative ground, but there's good reason to switch your car over at this point. One's a 2-pin, one's a 3-pin. It depends on what MG model you've got. Napa's got that, and they run those LEDs just beautifully.
I put that on my MGA and it works perfect.
But we actually, the Napa EL12 and EL13s are made by a company called Novita. They're out of Henderson, Tennessee. And we bought them. And so I'm very familiar with them. Let's see, who has a hand up? Howard?
Hi, very informative seminar. Two things. First of all, I replaced the headlights in my Jaguar XKE with a complete unit with the LED bulb in it, rather than try to fit a bulb in the back. There just was not enough room in the bucket from everything I could find online to make it fit. And it doesn't look right. You know, it's not period correct, but they work great. So, and what drove me to do that was the spacing in the bucket. So that was the solution there. But the other question I had was for the instrument panel and the gauges, there are some very small bayonet bulbs. Does Sylvania make anything that will fit that?
No, if I'm thinking, I think, and John probably knows better, I think those are 6-volt bulbs.
No, those are all 12s, but there's the miniature Edison threads like the 987s that screw in, and then there's bayonet, and then there's Lilliput Edison thread. And my gut is that those aren't available yet in those small sizes, but maybe I'm wrong.
I've put some LED dash bulbs.
Yeah, check with Abington Spares. I think he does have those little bulbs.
Yeah, I mean, S&G Barrett has them, but they're not really bright. They're about the same brightness as the original bulbs. And, you know, it's not exciting.
I put some LED, with all my direction LED. This time of the years, I've only tried the speedometer and the tachometer at night. One morning and that you don't want to replace the alternator bulb. You want to leave that an incandescent. You can probably speak to that to leave the incandescent part of the alternator circuit. And you don't want to change that to an LED. But there's plenty of small LED bulbs that
Ed, you've got those bulbs available, most of them? Ed Cook? I'm waiting for Ed Cook to unmute himself and say.
All right. Yeah, we do. We have sets for all the T cars and the MGBs. We have lights, tail lights, headlights, dash bulb lights. We have all that, flashers. I mean, I've installed them on all my own MGBs and Ts and TCs. So, you know, I tried to figure out which ones work best. And I think the sets we have are, most of them are made by Lights Up, and some I imported from England, but you know, I just try to make sure they all fit the sockets and work, and I think we got a pretty good selection now. We do have the dash bulbs too.
And when you say we, who is we?
Abington Spares.
Oh,
and Abington Spares was very helpful when I talked to you at the Kimberfest a couple of years ago, and you were very helpful. I have positive grounds on my cars, and you were very helpful with my MGB getting it set up. So I appreciate it.
It's good to hear.
Yep.
I'm on better behavior tonight than I was at the Kimberfest.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I bought your LEDs for my TD and they're wonderful.
Oh, thanks. It's good to hear. Yeah, I think they work fine. I mean, much brighter, and they don't draw any juice at all, really.
Joe,
The only thing you have to come up with is a bracket to hold that little square flasher.
That's a personal choice thing, we think. So whatever you design works, that works.
It did.
Do we have any more questions for Blair about
Yep,
LEDs?
Joe has his hand up, and I think there's
Yes, yep, let's go.
Yeah, so I recently put LED headlights in my car and it messes with the radio. So when the headlights are on, I don't know if it's me or something else, but with the headlights on, I can't listen to the radio. I have to listen to the CD. Does the LED do something different?
yeah, I would, back to the first slide on LEDs, there's a driver. And that's what that does is limit the current to the LEDs and adjust the voltage. And that is usually like a switching circuit, and that creates noise. And there's nothing you can do about it besides listen to your CDs.
Can you put a capacitor on it, Blair?
Not to eliminate that noise.
Okay.
Tell you
When we got those originally, I put them in my MGB and I couldn't use the radio. I thought the antenna had broke when I started the car. But we've worked with Lights Up, and the newer ones have a device on the back of the bulb that squelches that somehow. So it doesn't cause, but the first time I did put the ones they first sent me in, the next day I went to turn the radio on, I thought something was wrong with the antenna, and it took me about 3 days to figure out it was the LED headlights. And then they did work on that, and the ones they have now, you squelch that radio problem altogether. So I don't know. Blair probably understands more about the electronics of it than I do, but they work pretty good.
right, yeah, there's nothing you can do to fix what he has, but
No.
yeah, you can get a higher quality driver that puts out less noise. I'll tell you a weird, funny story about that. The new cars, how they have the key fobs, and you press the start button as long as the key fob is within of the steering column. So if you replace your third brake light in a Ram pickup truck with certain LEDs, that amount of noise will interfere with your key fob, and your truck will not start because you need to have your foot on the brake to press that start button. So that turns on that LED, makes all kinds of noise, and your truck won't start. Thanks.
Let's call on Bob and Gloria next, but tell me, I see there's a little hand up. How do you make that work on the screen?
Where it says reactions. You press on the bottom, it'll say reactions.
Yeah, okay, I see that. I've never seen this before.
Oh.
And what?
Oh, yeah, okay.
What I was gonna say is I have LED headlights and tail lights, and I have cruise control. With LED tail and brake lights, it wouldn't work. But I found a 5-pin relay, and I got a diagram if anybody wants to cruise on their car. And you put the 5-pin relay and it works fine. But it's got to be a 5-pin relay. But I don't have any radio problems or anything. I love the taillights and actually I can see where I'm going now.
Pat, what's up? You get your hand up.
I was looking at those headlight beam patterns, and I used to look at a lot of those. Was one of those a CBA headlight? You had the names blanked out.
Yeah, I'm trying to
An old Z-beam?
trying not to talk manufacturers, because I don't
Right.
think any one of them is that great. I used to think they were pretty great. I'm probably gonna be looking for another one for my vehicle, but
Moss is selling a reproduction of the old CBA Z-beam. I don't know how the quality is. I'm more of a Marshall guy myself. Enough out of me. Thanks.
Thanks.
Anybody else got their hands up? Or if you don't, you can break in and unmute yourself.
Yeah, my understanding is that using the dash lights and LED, you don't have the ability to dim.
Help me out. They're never too bright, are they?
I put some in a TD and they were too bright.
Okay. What's up with that, Blair?
It depends on the topology of the driver. So you can have a constant current driver, which will limit the current, but will not limit the voltage, or it only have one voltage going to the LED, or you can have really a resistive driver, so it just holds back enough voltage so it doesn't smoke the LED. The cheaper trying to cover a name. The cheaper of these little bulbs don't have a driver, it's just a resistor. And because of that resistor, it allows them to dim. The better ones, which limit the current and limit the voltage, it's sort of a fixed lumen output, so they won't dim. So depending on the topology, and they say the constant current drivers are better, but if you want to dim them, they're not better. So it depends is the answer, I guess.
Yeah, some of the dash bulbs are dimmable and some are not. The screw-in, I know the screw-in ones we have are definitely dimmable. So, like I say, the original ones are never too bright in a T car, but the LEDs are dimmable.
John, I put dimmers in my MGB, and what I did is I put LEDs in my dash lights, and I don't have overdrive. And I took an old Lucas on-off switch and I wired in resistance to drop the voltage. So I have basically two light intensities, and normally it's too bright, and I put it in the dim mode and I can see my needle and my numbers on my dash and tack. And when I want to check oil pressure or gas, I put it on the super bright. I can read that and then I shut it off.
That's very cool.
Wired in an extra switch because I don't have overdrive, and I just tried a couple of different resistors until I got an intensity that I like to knock down the brashness of the super bright.
You're using 80 ohms around there, do you think?
Probably. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, all right.
A couple of iterations in my basement before I took it out to the car.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
There is no problem with mixing then. I've converted all my running lights to LED, but not my headlights.
Obviously, it's not a problem.
Bob Cook, I'm interested in your comment about the cruise control and LED taillights. I also ran into the problem and had to put incandescents back in. What's the 5-pin relay that you spoke about?
Well, here, I have a diagram right here. And basically what you're trying to do is make sure that, I guess it doesn't register the negative or the ground. I'm sorry, the ground.
Yeah, it can't find adequate ground.
Right. So the pin that the relay that you put in will actually help it to find a ground. So I have a copy of it here, and
Bob and Gloria are going to take a picture of that and send it to me, and then you can send me, Glenn, you can send me a note, and I will send you their picture, so we don't trade phone numbers online. This isn't a dating site, and besides, Gloria's taken. So,
thank you much.
Okay, all right. Do we have any more questions for Blair about LED lighting?
Hi, John. Yeah, it's Neil Bryden.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada. So last year I installed the LED headlights that I got from Abington Spares. Really satisfied with them, no clarity problems, nothing at all. It's just plug and play. I do have a question for Blair, though. I want to install LED daytime running lights. A lot of people up here, everybody has daytime running lights. I want to be seen, so I'm just wondering if he's got any recommendations. Thanks.
I know that there are in the aftermarket, turn around, so I have a pile of them behind me.
Well, he's hunting. What's the, Neil, you can't just drive with your headlights on?
Yeah, I guess I could run all day with my headlights on, but
That's what I do
yeah,
with everything.
yeah, that's the alternative, but I'm thinking it's a bit of overkill. I don't know.
Or you could do what who was it? Rob, who weighed in, and you could put a different power to your blue with red circuit and step it down. And here we've got Pat, who's got MGB electrical systems by the guy from Detroit. And there may be some information in there, Rick Astley. So there may be some information on there on how to run a second circuit. Shouldn't be too complicated.
Okay, that's great information. Thanks so much.
And Blair was still hunting for something.
Yeah, I did find one. This is a sort of a fog lamp. So is this for your modern car or for an old MG?
It's a 664 MG with positive ground.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think Neil's talking about how to use his headlamps as running lights.
Or just to add something that I can put into the grill.
Yeah, just leave your low beams on. I think there's something in Canada about the DRLs have to come. They can't turn on with the emergency brake turned on. So your handbrake. But once again, pay no attention. Slide 1 or 2, Canadian MVSS 108. Anything in the aftermarket is good. You might want to, do some ballast resistor relay setup, and you can run your lamps at 6 volts or 8 volts instead of 12 volts. But why not just run them low beams all the time? I mean, you see those signs on, lights on for safety.
Yeah, but then you got to remember to turn them off, although it's not as bad with LEDs, but with incandescents, you park, you go in, you have 4 or 5 beers and a couple of hot dogs, and you come back out.
I don't know about you guys, but we can't drive after 4 or 5 beers.
Well, and the other
All
thing
right.
is that real
Okay,
MGs,
4 or 5 Pepsi Cola.
real MGs have a starting handle, right? So if you got enough power to even start to engage the starter motor, you just put the crank in the front and spin it up. But then if you're inebriated, you may have left it in gear. So that's double trouble. Do we have any more questions for Blair? Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very, very much, Blair. It's been very wonderful. And thank you very, very kindly for coming on. And if anyone has anything that's come up later on, you can contact me. I'll contact Blair, put you in touch with each other there. Pat's got a circuit up there with looks like a 4-pin relay, but he's got, that's a Rick Astley, A-S-T-L-E-Y, Rick Astley's book. So about MG wiring systems. So
You'll never regret buying that book. It's the best book ever on MG electrical. Awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to take just a quick break here and just make another pitch to go to the University Motors website, press the yellow PayPal button, make a contribution. I'll read your name next time. I'll send you a thank you note, and I will appreciate your contribution very much. Now we're going to get over into the chat section. My 52 TD, this is from Wayne. So you can unmute yourself, Wayne, and we can talk about this. My 52 TD, just a minute, I got stuff in the way now. Started jumping out of first and second gear. Why and how to fix. Well, first gear, a walking first gear is, I understand what a walking first gear is. And I understand why it pops out of that. But second gear, there's a couple of tricks you can do on the gearbox itself, but my God, you got to take the gearbox cover off. Pat G had the slickest cover with adjustable screws and so forth on it. But I think it may be that the spring is just getting like really weak. Generally, you don't drive in first. You can hold the car in first gear, but beyond that, oh boy, in second gear, that makes it a real bugger, especially if deceleration or acceleration, one or the other, exacerbates the problem. But we're almost at the point here where we're talking about taking the top cover off the gearbox and working with the springs. But you haven't, since you haven't unmuted yourself, or if you
I'm
have-
unmuted.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. All right. So,
Are you talking about those little springs with the little balls?
bingo. Bingo. And Pat had a cover for a TD gearbox. I'd never seen this done before, but you have that around, Pat? Pat's gone to find it, and then he'll unmute himself and hold it up. When you're rebuilding the gearbox, you put two balls on the 1-2 shift rail, the shift rod. One comes in from the top naturally, and you add another one that comes in from the right. But that requires that you take the shifter rod out, which, I mean, once you got the cover off the gearbox, you only have to take the floorboards out. It's just a horror. And then the remote control comes off, and then you can get that top. But yeah, there's Pat. Can you, Pat, unmute yourself, Pat, and start talking so you show up on there we go. Just say a few words there, Pat, so you come up.
So years ago, I fixed the car just by shimming the detent springs with a piece of 5/16 bolt that I cut with a hacksaw. But a friend of mine did Hewland gearboxes for Formula Fords. And he showed me adjustable detents that he would modify and put into the gearboxes. I thought, well, that would work great on a T-type. So here's a modified top cover, 2 Allen screws. I bought at the hardware store.
You
When this
mean
is
they're
on
not
your
metric?
gearbox?
They're not a metric thread? Oh boy, this
No,
not
no, they're
only
not
is this
Whitworth.
okay. All right.
Anyway, and with an Allen screw, you can go out and test drive the car and loosen or tighten them. You know, if you over tighten them, it makes it very difficult to shift. But you can set the detents so that it doesn't jump out of gear. That'll usually fix it. Not always, but it's much cheaper than a
And
new
how do you-
cluster in first
How do you
gear.
keep those Allen screws from moving around?
Well, so when you tap the hole, if you leave a little taper,
okay,
they'll be nice and tight. These are nice and tight, so
okay.
they're not going to
Right.
go in.
So anyway, there's no good news here. It all requires taking the seats out, the floorboards off, the cover off, the remote control housing off, maybe the top of the gearbox off. So anyway, yeah, it's.
John, I don't know
Is that
why,
column
but
on
on
top
mine
there,
it
is
was
that added?
jumping out.
Is
Two
that
people-
little column that was above the top of the cover, is that added on there? Or is that on there originally?
No, that's on there originally. That's the there are drillings in there, and into those drillings go the springs. So that's,
Okay.
you're not adding anything. You're only drilling it out and tapping it to come up with a socket set screw,
I understand.
which you can buy at the hardware store. But geez, you ought to get 8x1 metric ones or something or other, so at least the thread form stays consistent. Anyway.
Sounds good. I got a
Okay.
suggestion on the driving light
Purists.
question.
Yes,
If you put a relay on your ignition wiring, and then that switches on a a fog light or something in the front of your car, you'll have a driving light.
Only when the ignition's on.
That's right, when you're driving.
Wayne, thank you very kindly. That's really handy. You don't forget to turn it off. That's the advantage.
John, excuse me, mine TD jumped out a second on deceleration. And when I took the box apart, I don't know why, but the ball was actually not dropping into, the hole in the shaft and the ball were in two different locations.
Okay.
So I have no idea how that happened. The PO rebuilt the transmission or anything, but so obviously Pat G's answer wouldn't work, because if it's not dropping into the slot, it won't go. But if this is something that it used to not, and now it is, it's probably a matter of spring tension and adjusting, like you said.
Okay, so we got an answer on that one. Wonderful. And I didn't ask Wayne, where are you from?
California, San Luis
Okay.
Obispo, California.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. From Charles, everybody. What do you think of Dyna beads to take out the front end shimmy that I've been chasing for a while? I've tried everything, but I've tried everything except having the wire wheels crude. So Charles, are you on now? It says Charles. Waiting. Well, anyway, you take the cheapest solution. It used to be that you tell, here we go. It used to be that if you had stuff inside the wheel, that's what caused it to vibrate. So now all of a sudden there's this stuff you put in the wheels that causes it not to vibrate. If it works, it works. How great is that? But you'll just have to experiment.
So you haven't heard anything good, bad, or indifferent about them?
No, I'm just stunned that they work. It just it's counterintuitive that they work. But one of the things you want to do is get the corner of the car up with a wheel in front of you and spin the wheel in front of you so you can watch the wheel go past you and see if it's doing this.
Right.
If it's doing this, beads aren't going to do it. The other thing is spin it around, and then put your hand on it as you're spinning it and just feel the wheel and to see if there's any lumps or any scallops. If there's lumps or scallops, you can't add beads to take care of that. So those are two real, it's not, the ultimate wire wheel guy is in Greensboro, North Carolina. Judd, help me out.
Hendrix,
right.
Hendrix.
Right.
But once the spokes have rusted, and if yours are older and original, they have, you can't change them. So then the next solution is to get new ones. But anyway, what Alan Hendrix does, puts it on a jig, spins it up, and takes a razor, and as this thing is going around, shaves the wheel, shaves the tire itself, so that it is concentric with the center. Oh my God, it's like driving on glass.
Right.
But expensive process.
Expensive, and not only that, but you got to get them down there. I'm in Maryland.
Well, once you put them in a box, it doesn't matter where they go. It's just writing a bigger check. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep. Wish I had a better answer. So.
Not a problem.
Okay, so Dave Brown says try Headworks in Minneapolis for head work. And that is was that Judd? Were you asking me how to make the car go faster? Right in the very beginning, before we even started the show. Somebody was talking. No,
that was me, John.
Yeah, okay.
Tom.
All right. So Tom, Headworks, and where are you from, Tom?
Right outside Philadelphia.
Well, there's probably somebody closer to you. We got a shop in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, Dick Moritz, probably.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Yep. Good guy. Yep. Okay, David Wren. You can unmute yourself, David. When I reverse out of my garage, the brake pedal does not move much, but stops okay. Once the brake has been used 2 or 3 times, it feels normal with a normal amount of pedal movement. What would be causing this? So what year and model do you have, David?
64 MGB.
So the deal is that when you're backing it out of the garage after a period of disuse,
Yeah, just when it's cold. Yeah.
the pedal just moves just a tiny little bit, but as soon as you start going forward, then the pedal moves farther. Still,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
still
just-
stops okay.
Yeah, the brakes still work, but it's just there's no movement at all, or very little movement when you reverse that first reverse out.
My guess, I'm it's just some guesses here. First of all, it doesn't seem to be that there's a problem yet. I mean, it works. The pads, you know, when you leave the pads, maybe the pad, you know, when you come into the car, into the garage and stop, put on the brakes, the pads move in and don't move back out much. As soon as you start driving, the rotor, which is running between the pads, knocks the pads back a little bit. Therefore, when you go to press on the brake pedal, they have to move farther than they did before. Or maybe it's something like that with the rear brakes. So the rear brakes are always out of adjustment. You can adjust those up pretty easily. You know, just to see. So where are you calling from, David?
Yeah, I'm from Auckland, New Zealand.
Oh, you guys just had that terrible cyclone. Did they find the missing 1,000 people or so?
Still looking. There's a lot of people that can't find the up valleys and so forth, but yeah, it's pretty drastic down there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was in the North Island, right?
Yeah. So it's we got hit here. Well, not at our place, but a lot of people in Auckland got hit. But then a couple of days later, there was big flooding down in halfway down the North Island on the east coast, and there's lots of isolated valleys, and the silt that came through is just like up to people's roofs.
Oh,
it's just amazing.
Oh boy, you guys have been hit hard in the past, what, 10 years? You had an earthquake up there, didn't you, about 8 years ago?
2011, there was an earthquake down in the South Island.
And then you elected Jacinda, and then COVID came, but she's gone. Now you got this. Oh my gosh, you guys are paying heavily. Well, good luck to you.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay.
So hasn't been much of a summer, that's for sure. So
yeah. Oh, you guys are going into winter right now, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, it's the end of summer. Well, March is the end of summer. So
okay, right.
Yeah, we're all right.
Good.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Hey, you're welcome. Nathaniel Saltzman has got a note out to Dave Brown. You're located in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. He is usually, but he's in Texas now. Are you in Texas forever now, David, or what? Dave Brown? He must have had to leave. So anyway, that's where he's been from. Yes. Peter Koreski, if MGB members have not heard, as of February 2023, the AMGBA will no longer exist due to the passing of the president, Frank Ocho. So the American MGB Association dates from about 1972, 73. My membership number's 76, 415, 78, 415. I was a member for a long time, still have been. So I know that the North American MGB Register reached out to the remaining 2 people at the AMGBA and said, look, well, you know, we're happy to continue the memberships that you have. You know, I mean, if you just got eight months of membership, we'll take you on for 8 months, no problem, you know, but they didn't accept that offer. So any members of the AMGBA, there's a nice run, long run, and it's gone. So if you have been a member of the AMGBA and you still want to belong to a national club, you want to come over to the North American MGB register. So, Peter, are you still on? From Virginia? So anyway, that's the news about the MGBA. So no, there's no heir apparent. No, there is not. Yeah, Frank, guy, known those guys for like ever, you know, and I AMGBA, and I just talked to John Gianasca, who was a co-founder of the club, just a month and a half ago or so when I was in Rochester, New York. Margie Johnson, who is the secretary of the AMGBA, called me just looking for options, advice, just to chat, because Frank's death came up. He had died of a heart attack. It was just absolutely sudden and unexpected. So I called Gianasca just shortly after that to talk to him, but I guess I've just decided to shut it down. Okay, Peter McCarthy, any recommendations for a center brake light to add to a 72 midget? Is it possible to mount one without drilling holes? Must be some that come with magnets. Chimsel, CHMSL, center high mount stoplight. Wiring it's a dream. You can put it wires right through the trunk and hook up to your green with purple circuit. But there's got to be some that have got magnets on it. Has anybody done that with magnets on the back of their car? There's got to be a way so you don't scratch up the paint.
Use 3M command strips.
What's that?
3M command strips.
3M command, COMMAND command.
Correct. They're adhesive, and then if you want to pull them out, you pull the light off, and then you can pull the tab, and they
Okay.
release from on any damage.
Hey, very cool. Very cool. Command strips. I'm gonna write that down. I wrote down that butyl rubber number from last time. So,
I believe they're made by 3M.
yep. Okay. Very cool.
And this would be for an MGA.
Anything. Well, you wouldn't go on an MGA trunk lid, would it? But it would go on the body just above the trunk lid.
Well, on the MGA, I just took a second bracket for the illuminator for the license light and mounted that above the license light and put the third brake light on that.
Okay, that's a pretty wimpy little mounting though, isn't it? Isn't that bracket mounted in rubber? I mean, isn't that?
No, the bracket that holds the light
Okay.
is low, but I took a second one and put it above it.
Okay, very cool.
And then the brake light is mounted on that.
Got it. Very nice. Working through our chat section here. Barry Jacobs to everybody. What do you think of modern headlights with glare they give to coming vehicles? Well, that was all answered by Blair here. So I hate to be blinded by other people's headlights. And those ones that got the Kelvin of 48,000, I mean, that's just a joke because I know they don't go that high, but those ones that are so blue, you know, I mean, you can see them driving down the road. One out of every 30, 50 vehicles has absolutely like sky blue lights, you know, must be real hot. Neil again, I have 64B, LEDs from Abingdon. Yep, we've already done that. Neil, thank you for coming in about that. Rodolfo, hey. Rodolfo came in later, but he said, if you make me a co-host, I can help muting individually. So Rodolfo, are you on still?
Yeah, yes. I was only offering a little help because
Hey, that's very, very kind. That's very kind. As it was, I only had 2 people who had barking dogs or whatever it was, and because of the screen that I've got, they light up, and one guy had to mute about a dozen times right in a row, but either he finally understood or he quit fiddling. But that's very kind. I'll keep that in mind for next time. So, what's news in Monterrey, Mexico?
Well, I made a deal with the MG agency of the cars, brand new cars from China. And my car is going to be a month in the dealership, and I'm going to get I don't know what, but at least that's something it should be done with you guys when you have the MG brand there.
If it ever comes here.
If it ever gets there, yeah.
We have been disappointed for 43 years. It still isn't here yet. Gosh, we don't know. So if they let you drive a new ZT or something or other?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Are they letting you drive a new MG while your MG is in their showroom?
Oh yeah, definitely. I drove the SUV and the sports car, and quite sturdy, quite nice. I don't know how many years it's going to last, but at least brand new, it doesn't have any problem.
Very nice. Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see if there's still one of those Chinese MGs, 40 or 50 years from now, but who knows? Who knows? Well, hey, thank you very kindly for your offer, and next time. So
anytime.
Well, let's see. Mike C. Blair is a co-host, so you can hit mute, and it shouldn't mute him. It seems like it did once, but then after that, it didn't. So I'm on to that. Every one of these seminars, every one of these Zooms is a learning session. Harris to everybody. So yes or no, should I convert my 78 MGB to LED lighting? I've wrestled with this. Well, the headlights are our question. Do you want to go with the headlights? But the other lights, absolutely. Just absolutely. Dash lights, I don't know. Harris, you're from California. Are you still on? No, Harris. At the peak, I got 230 people. Now, Doug Clark may add a couple more on there, but we're down to 148 now. So anyway. All right. So Nathaniel Salzman, can you shim it to dial in the reflector angle? Nathaniel, are you still on? Everybody's either all muted or they've all gone home, but I think Nathaniel's probably talking about aiming the headlights, the reflector angle. I don't know. So you can always adjust that. Pat G, here we go. So, yep, you've got that old Marshall light. Oh, an aiming machine. Works great for H4 headlamps. Oh, I used to have those too, that you'd stick them on the front of the car and you could aim them up and back and get them absolutely straight. But since I don't have mine anymore, that video, which Blair referred to on YouTube, I'm aiming the headlights of my daughter's 73 BGT. You aim them on high beams. You measure the distance from the ground to the center of the headlight. You measure the distance from one center of the headlight to the other center of the headlight, and you put two pieces of tape on the garage door, and you get, I don't know, 15 feet away or something or other, and get the car straight, straight at it, and then adjust the beams so that the biggest part of the beam is right in the center of that cross, and then when you hit low beam, and it isn't dim. Everybody calls it dim, but it's not. It's kicking the headlamps down. Todd Clark, who recently passed away, too, besides Frank Ocho, finally found a bunch of Lucas bulbs. and they're made here. Maybe they're made by Sylvania. Maybe they're made by Wagner. And anyway, he found them in the United States and bought a bunch of them, only to find out that they dipped left, rather than dipping right. Anyway, he wasn't able to sell them here. John R. Lights Up, LITEZUPP, from LLC from Texas, made in the USA, has LED lights for MG and other cars too, and make bulbs that are not polarity sensitive, and they're very helpful. So that's another source, Lights Up, ZUPP. Alton, on my little car, we call that light that gets into the trees the squirrel spotter. Okay, I've got a one of those Lucas flamethrowers. I don't know, Blair rattled off a couple numbers, but it's a lamp out in front, looks really cool. That's what it does mainly, is look cool. But when I do pull it on, boy, it shines quite a beam down the road, although I don't use it enough to adjust it enough. So I should aim it up into the trees. Robert Davison from Grand Rapids. I find the SUV.
Hi, John.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for being on.
Real good.
I find the SUVs and pickup trucks that have their lights at 4 feet off the road blinding. RMGs will not annoy much of anyone as we sit very low. Even in my wife's Toyota last night, I could not see the road for quite a distance due to either a Chevy Silverado or GMC blasting me in the face with a light. Yeah, what are the regulations? It seems like there aren't any. I don't know. It's when you're driving your MG and there's someone behind you, I mean, coming at you, they're gone. They come up and they're gone. But behind you, you got two options. One is to turn both of the mirrors away from each other, away from you, so it's not in your eyes. Best not aim them at the driver of the car behind you, because then he'll get mad. And we have open carry in the state of Michigan. That's no good. So the other one is when you find a spot, just pull over and let them go by, because that's what they want to do anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's dreadful when you're driving an MG and you got somebody behind you with a great big lamps. Oh my gosh.
It's dreadful. I mean, last night I could not see anything coming back. We were coming back from Perrin Brewing and we were coming down Division. I couldn't see a thing. And I just don't get it. I just don't understand it.
Some people talk about, used to be fog lights were yellow. If they're yellow, they'll pierce fog another 10 feet than bright lights, which just blow back at you. But I know in some states, yellow fog lights were illegal. That's what I heard. So I don't know it, but I've heard it enough from enough people that there must be some truth to it. So I have no idea what kind of lighting regulations there are, but you're not going to make a citizen's arrest, and it may be that it's just the state of affairs. I mean, we sit in cars that are lower than any other car on the road. So,
and the only other thing I can throw in is, I work in TV and lighting for 42 years. The incandescent bulbs we used to get at home are about 2,800 Kelvin. Daylight is 5,600 Kelvin. And when we would go out to light things, we would have to work at balancing through filtration or whatever, so we would get the correct color balance. So anybody who's telling you they've got 18,000 Kelvin or something like that, forget it. That's up into the ultraviolet spectrum. All you're going to get is sunburn. You won't see it.
Okay. Right. So
beware, everybody.
What's that?
Just beware.
what's the highest Kelvin that you can see, that you can normally see? I mean,
Oh,
like
boy,
really,
yeah, I know,
9,000, something like that?
yeah, probably something like that, because that's up in the violet spectrum.
Okay.
But a little bit beyond that, ultraviolet, that's what gives you sunburn. You can't see it.
Yeah.
And anything probably below 1,800, 1,500, you're not going to see that either. So,
Okay.
Anybody telling you anything like that, hold your nose, because it's BS.
Okay. Hey, thanks very much, Robert.
No problem.
Alan Hayward had the headlights on our 2022 Highlander lowered twice so the oncoming traffic would not flash me. That's kind. It's kind. So Neil Bryden's on again. Would like to add a small LED daytime running light. My MGB, we talked about that. Whether to run just turn on the low beams, put a resistor in the circuit off the ignition. That's even cooler. So they come on when you start the car, although as soon as, they don't draw enough current to slow it down. Talked about that. So, okay. Howard Callett, does Sylvania produce small LED bulbs for gauges and instrument panels, bayonet and screw mount for my Jag? I think he was already on, and I think Ed Cook from Abingdon Spares said that he had quite a selection of bulbs available. So J.H. Ben, apparently the engineer has not seen the new 7-inch round LED headlight being offered by Holley. So I mean, like Holley is in Holley carburetors, performance stuff. So anyway, maybe there's a new 7-inch round LED headlight, and maybe it lights up down the road correctly.
So that's, I hadn't heard of that. And I just found it. It's made by Morimoto. That's interesting, because remember that the pictures I showed with the spots on the wall?
Yeah.
I said my intern took these photos. It's funny. He left, we hired him. He left, he went to Morimoto, and now he's back in marketing. You're right, I didn't know about these, but look, they're $700 or $400.
$400. Well, they ought to be shooting a nice beam for $400.
I'm looking at the some of the shots online, and maybe could be good.
A lot of money for a headlight. But
I'll test them.
88 feet per second at 60 miles an hour, right? So yeah. Todd Tweedy, hi John. I was told that having my distributor recurved for today's fuels is money well spent. Thoughts? Yes. I don't know where they changed that. Speaking of that, right at the end of the time tonight, but I was gifted this book. Here, let me stop my just a minute. Let me get rid of my background, choose my virtual background. I'm going to zero. I got this book, Classic Engines, Modern Fuel. And what is the guy testing? He's testing a TC, and it's a whole book. It's real light print. The graphs are really tiny. My eyesight isn't so great anymore, so that's why I need LEDs. And it's pretty thick in theory, so I've been struggling through this, but part of it has to do with when the spark comes. So yes, there is something to that. And if you talk to Jeff Schlemmer, an advanced distributor, or Rob Medinsky at British Vacuum Unit in New Hampshire, both those guys can do it. First of all, if your distributor is rebuilt, it's going to run so much better anyway, because the firing angle's right and you restored. You've gone back. Remember, I got a lot to say about distributors. There's one distributor for an MGB that is the best, and that's the 40897, 62 through 67. They continued using that same distributor in England, and then in 1974-5, when they moved from the 25D to the 45D, the 45D was a 41427 distributor, 41427. They used to be sold by everybody as Eurospec distributors, and those had an advance that was the same as 1963. That's the best advance for the gasoline at the time. So from 1968 through 1980, on all the cars, the distributors, every year they change since they have to meet emission standards. That only makes them run so they meet the standards. It doesn't mean it makes the car run well. So anyway, you want to go back to those original style distributors. That's the goal. But those guys know a lot more about that than I do so far. I haven't read enough about it to be able to know only that, yes, timing does make a difference with modern fuel. Oh, here we go. Gerald Dalton has come in and said, I sent my 75 distributor to advanced distributor. Now, 75, the federal and Canadian spec used points, but the California spec used electronic. For recurve, I removed all the smog system and found the mechanical advance built in for smog years was retarded. The car will now run 100 miles an hour with no problem. So here's a testimonial, a testimony to advanced distributor Jeff Schlemmer. Tony W. First, anyone who has a 75-foot light guide in their basement is my hero. So Blair, you got that going for you tonight. Second, has anyone come across a roughly 4 Kelvin H4? I updated to H4 LEDs for better lighting and to protect the switch. But I could not find anything other than 6 Kelvin for the H4s from a reputable dealer. So again, that's, I don't know, Tony W., you still on?
Hey, John, this is Tony. Yes, I am still on. So
yeah, okay, well, Blair, did what Blair talking about, did that help you, or is Ed still on? Is Ed Cook still on? Do you know what the Kelvin rating is of your bulbs, Ed?
yeah, the 4,000 versus 6,000.
Yeah. So Blair, what can you answer on that?
There's lamps in almost every color. 2 seconds on eBay, I got about 45,000 of them. I can't, speak if they're reputable, and that's really what the talk was about, so that everyone knows what a good looking light looks like, without, plugging one company or the other. Just looking at pictures, I think Ed's are probably around that, probably maybe a little higher.
Okay. No, great. I know, Blair, that you were staying away from companies. That's why I was asking it as a general question, so that I didn't put you on the spot. That's all.
Yeah, no, there's plenty available. I mean, I know ours are up around 5,000, but we don't spam them. They're just, everyone prefers that HID look. You were looking for something a little warmer, going to 4,000, but they're available.
What's high HIV? I mean, besides what we all know, high intensity violet or something, or?
Oh, HID is high intensity discharge.
Oh, okay, all right. HID,
old,
all right.
I don't want to say old school, but it was just prior to LEDs.
Okay,
Exterior, so much light comes out of them that they usually have shields in them to knock down the light. Just so happened that LED just went Betamax right by it.
okay. My first marriage, I was married at Gibraltar in 1973. And the gates into Spain were closed. So all the vehicles in Gibraltar were stuck there. And there were plenty of street lights, so you really didn't need headlights. Gibraltar's not a very big place. So everybody had eyes painted on their headlights. It was real weird. Some of them were looking straight ahead, some were looking off on an angle. Funny. 1973 Gibraltar. So yeah, nobody needed bright lights there. Okay, Mike C. I replaced the interior courtesy lamp with an LED. The one I got gives light identical to the incandescent, but doesn't get hot. So Mike C, where did you get your bulb?
I think I got it off of Amazon.
Oh, okay.
They were that festoon style, but they
Festoon.
had different lengths, and I just kind of picked the length that was closest to what's in the midget. So
okay, all right.
standard size. And it was the bulb was not unidirectional or omnidirectional like an incandescent. You wanted to, it had one side that was much brighter than the other, and you kind of had to aim it to the front, but looks the
Okay.
same, and it doesn't make the lens get really hot and start to bubble. So
Okay.
kind of nice.
One of the old tricks is to take a reverse light bulb and put it in the interior light. But man, if you'd had that on for more than 2 minutes, things started to melt. Those things.
Yeah, they're like 18 watts, I think.
They get really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, David Sander. I put red LEDs on the taillights in my Saabs. When I hit the brakes, the radio goes to static. Okay, we've talked about that. That's so interesting. So great presentation. Thank you for a good informative. What was the Pat G, what was the name of the electrical book, please? That's Rick Astley, A-S-T-L-E-Y, Astley. Rick Astley, MG Electrical Systems. There's also he's also written a more generic book about British electrical systems. Rick Astley. Oh, here, Marty has come in underneath with the ISBN. So you can get it right from there. Alan Thompson, sorry, off topic, not good. I'm looking for seatbelt fixing parts for 60 MGA, like those generally sold by Todd Clark. Does anyone have an alternative source? You know, the original seatbelts on an MGA, the original ones, stick up. And if you're getting older, if you're getting heavier, you can wipe your butt on those, and it's very, very uncomfortable. I came up with, it'd be interesting to know on the 60, I know by 62 on an MGA, there's seat bolt holes drilled and tapped into the frame. And on my MGA, I put the belts into those, and then the cross shoulder part I took back with, it's got a clip in it that you can take on and off because it has to go above the top. But I put an extra long bolt through the fender, and that makes the pickup point for this hook. And so it goes across my shoulder and then hooks underneath the rear cowl, underneath the rear cockpit, and on this bolt. And if I'd be happy, Alan, I'd be happy to send you a picture of my setup. Okay. And the original MGA one is just, I mean, if you're into originality, then you got to do it. But if you just want to cross the shoulder belt, that will save your face from getting smushed in the dashboard.
Yeah, that's
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
and I use Kangol. I used some old Kangol magnetic belts, but any 3-point belts will work. Fixed belts. I'm no fan of adjustable belts on sports cars. You want a nice fixed belt. So you cinch yourself into the cockpit, into the seat, and really snugly. So you're like an insect in there with your body, one with the vehicle, and then 4 limbs free to run the throttle and the clutch and the turn signal switch and the steering wheel and the gear levers.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, contact me. I can explain it, or call me tomorrow or something.
Okay.
Okay. Jerry Vitarelli. Are you still on, Jerry? You hanging in so late?
Hi, John. Yep, still here.
Oh, Jerry, it's a real pleasure. Real pleasure to, yeah. So yeah, every summer comes by, I wonder if I'm gonna hear from Scott. So see, Jerry's written, you converted my TC to cycle fenders. I love the look. So much, I'd like to convert the TD. Can you provide a source for the cycle fender adapter kit for a TD? Oh, and Hank Rippert did that to his TD 8888. And Bryson Leslie is doing that to his TD right now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So Jerry, if you call me tomorrow, I'll give you Bryson's phone number. You can call him and see where he got his stuff. I was down there a year ago, and he was working away, going to put those cycle fenders on his TD, so it looked like Hank Rippert's. So just call me tomorrow, and I'll give you Bryson's phone number, and he can probably tell you where he got his stuff, unless there's anyone else on here who knows of cycle fender conversion kits for a TD. My guess is you're going to have to make it up.
All right. Thank you very much, John. We'll
Jerry, it's a pleasure indeed. Absolutely. Now we got J.H. Ben. This is, I read something from him before. We've got sealed beam Holley retro bright LED headlights, 7-inch round, available in 2 temperatures. So we got two temps on the 2 Kelvin ratings on there. Don Bueller, missed the start, great LED section. Why are you in pink on my screen? Because my lighting is so bad. Blair can tell me what the problem, my lighting is probably down at 1800. Wait, I guess you can't see down there, but it must be at 2200. I've just got, I wanted to take the, I'm in Southern Alabama. I'm on the beach. A short respite from the snow and ice in Grand Rapids. And the lamps in this condo have the lampshades zip tied to the bases, so you can't walk away with them. That's how much they trust us. And all the bulbs are like really, really low Kelvin. So that's why I'm pink.
It looks like there may be, are they CFLs, those spiral lamps?
No, they aren't that. They're just normal lamps, but this isn't very bright, you know. So that's when I'm home, you know, I got an LED in my kitchen, you know, and it shines down on me, and I've got another LED that comes at me from 45 degrees. My elementary knowledge of lighting, and those are both real much higher Kelvin. So that's why I'm pink tonight. So.
I thought I was back in the late 60s again.
Yeah, it's all pastel, So Vaughn Langless says that he mounted his Chimsel center high mount stoplight on his roll bar. We got the 3M commercial strips, command strips, excuse me, for the attaching. Let's see, Mike C. Any guidance on tire pressures? My midget handbook says 22 front and 24 rear, but that seems really low. That's because it is really, really low. Do modern tires need more pressure? Absolutely. So my go-to always is 30, 32, 30 in the front, 32 in the back. But experiment. If you don't like 22, 24, go 24, 26. You don't like that, go 26, 28. Go 28, 30, go 30, 32, go 32, 34, and see what you like. If you're grossly underinflated, you'll wear the tires. If you're grossly overinflated, you'll wear the tires. If you're underinflated, it seems like you're driving during an earthquake. If you got too much air pressure in the tire, it's really harsh driving, although it's easy to turn the wheel. So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's a really low figure. I don't get it. Are those bias ply numbers that weren't ever updated for radial? I don't. It's always surprising. So, Ed Cook did sign out. Thanks for another great call. Rich Poland, I now use yellow glare reducing glasses that fit over my regular glasses at night. So this is yellow glare reducing glasses. So Robert, you can buy
Like
yourself
shooter's glasses.
What's that?
That's like the glasses that hunters and shooters use to get rid of the glare. Target shooting glasses.
Okay. Thank you.
It's cutting out all the blue when you put yellow on.
Okay. And here we got Marty Bradley's link about how to adjust the headlamps. Bill Freund, do you know where I can find a flamethrower today? Had a pair in the 60s and loved them. Just, like places like eBay and just, or you go to the swap meet at Carlisle or the swap meet at Hershey, contact some vendors in England to get some of those flamethrowers. And then if you want to be really cool, you get the clips and you get the little wire mesh that goes on the front of them. So Todd Tweedy, thanks, gotta go. Yep. Here's a guy who said that Mark B says that Rob at British Vacuum Unit not only took care of his distributor, but drilled the body for his HIF, so it would accept that. Also over in the chat is the ISBN for classic engines, modern fuel. Let's see, Mark Ferrier. John, I've cobbled and hacked wires running to my 77 MGB coil. I think the voltage may be too high. I know the resistance is supposed to be in a wire and the car is supposed to start at 12 volts and run on, actually it's 6 volts, not 9, for voltage. So I checked the coil from the positive to ground, or do I read it across the coil? This is a 77 MGB, still has the original distributor. Oh my gosh. So on a 75 through 79 MGB, the coil is powered with a pair of white with greens. One white with green comes off the starter motor and gives full battery voltage, say 10.5 volts at start. The other white with green comes from behind the left front headlamp or up around that area, where it's attached to a resistor wire, and that resistor wire right underneath the fuse box exits the loom, and that's where it's powered by a straight white wire. So white goes into this long resistance wire, and then it's changed down to 6 volts and comes back to the coil. If you want to check the voltage when the car is running, and put a voltmeter between the plus side of the coil and ground, and you get the voltage that's coming into the coil. And then you want to check the coil on your ohm meter. There are 2 coils. One runs at about 3 ohms, 3.0 ohms, and that is the 12 volt coil. And then there's the 1.5 ohm coil, which is the 6-volt coil. So there are two possible coils, and depending on how you hook up that wiring, you might be running 12 volts straight in, which is too much for it. And if it's the original ignition system, which has got a green square on the side of the distributor and a 3-wire plug that's got a white with black and a white with blue wire on it, you're the last person in the world that has a working distributor. So yes, you want to get another one and replace it before that fails. Because once it fails, yes.
John, what I'm testing the voltage from the positive with it running, testing the voltage from the positive side of the coil and grounding it. And I'm getting like 14 volts is what I'm getting.
Okay, well, that's battery voltage, which means that there's an additional wire hooked to the coil, giving you battery voltage all the time. Maybe you need that. So you got to, first of all, check your coil. Take the wires off your coil, take all the positive wires off, for instance, and check across the 2 spade terminals, and you're either getting 1.5 or 3. If you're getting 3, leave it in the present configuration. If you're getting 1.5 ohms, then you've got to figure out which one of those wires is the incorrect one. So you can call me tomorrow and we can go through this again, but again, the only 2 wires on the forward side of the coil ought to be white with greens, one from the starter motor and one from that resistor wire.
Yeah, that's gone. They've cobbled something in, and there's kind of a floating white wire that's several inches long that just wrapped into the loom that goes nowhere. It's been cut, but I checked the voltage to it and it was 12 volts. So I don't think that's it either. Well, I know that one wire comes over from one of the relays, I think, and that's what, let's see, I disconnected one of them and the car would start but wouldn't run. And so then I was able to isolate the fact that that one is the one that it needs to run on, and that one's is running from a cobbled section spliced into some other wires, and it's got 12 volts all the time. The coil is 1.5 ohms, and I'm assuming the ignition it's a Lucas system, and it's like a black box that the coil is mounted to.
That's the black box under the coil.
Under the coil, and it's of course running to looks to be the original distributor.
Okay, all right. Okay, that was a later distributor. It's a lot better distributor, but you're getting twice as much of a spark as you should, and eventually that's gonna wreak havoc with something. Eventually.
Can I put a ballast resistor in there?
About 2 ohms. Yes.
Okay. And that will that reduce the
running
voltage then,
voltage? Yes, it will. Do you still have the resistor on the back side of the coil with a?
No.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, so you can just get a ballast resistor. 1.5 ohms. So what am I thinking of? About 1.5 ohms, and that'll drop it down. That'll do it.
Could he get a 3 ohm coil?
Well, he could get a 3 ohm coil, but that's $30 or $40, and the resistor might be 8.
I see.
Well, I was thinking about changing the ignition and everything anyway. If I were to just put a 3 ohm coil and a different distributor in.
Okay, you can put it. First of all, what you got works. So what we're talking about is only a change in performance.
Right.
And at that point, then what kind of carburetor do you have?
It's got a Weber on it, a 38.
Okay, so at this point, you want to go back. If you're going to change anything, you've got to go back to an original distributor, the 40897. You got to go back to that. You can't buy a new distributor because those have advanced rates that are not equal to each other, and they're all over the board, and they're not. You want to get something that's good. It's going to cost you a couple $100 a couple $150 to buy one outright from one of those 2 rebuilders. But that's what you want. And then hook it up to not manifold vacuum, but ported vacuum. And time it 32 degrees before top dead center at full mechanical advance. That's your sweet spot, 32 degrees.
Advanced distributor will not work on electronic ignition anymore.
Who?
Advanced distributor, Jeff, will
Oh,
not
no.
work on, he won't
No.
work on electronic ignition.
No.
So
No.
what was the other group you mentioned?
Well, no. Neither of them are going to convert this over for you because they won't work on it. What you got to do is buy another one outright
Okay.
with a cap and a rotor, and at that point, you still don't have to change the coil. You can still put a ballast resistor on it. So,
Okay. But the brand of the distributor would be?
Lucas.
Oh, Lucas. Okay.
Yep, an original Lucas 40897.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See ya. We're getting right down to it here. We got a couple more messages, and take care, everybody. I gotta go. Eclectic Motorworks has some of Todd Clark's 3rd-point seatbelt brackets. So Eclectic, not electric, Eclectic Motorworks in Holland, Michigan has some of Todd Clark's 3-point seatbelts. So this is Tim B. Let us know that. So.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Somebody talked about a flamethrower a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talking about the distributor?
No, we're talking about a lamp. A lamp that throws a Lucas lights.
Sorry.
No, it's
thank you.
okay. It's all right. Okay. All right. So anyway, we are down to the end. So, $375. That's what Jeff Schlemmer sells the complete 40897 distributor, the cap, a rotor, and wires. $375.
Okay,
Anyway.
and that's a points unit?
Yes.
That's points in it, right? Okay.
It does.
Hey, John,
Yes.
this is Marty. I'm John's assistant. I have a fresh headlight story that you don't even know because I haven't seen you. So I've been struggling with my headlights on my car, which is just, it's my Hyundai Santa Fe. And I have kids that work really late at night that I have to go pick up. So I have this road with like notorious amounts of deer. So I'm always flicking up to my high beams all the time. And I get really annoyed when someone passes me and I have to take them back down. And I was struggling with my night driving, and I thought, you know, it must be that I'm getting old and I have cataracts. They've gotten really bad fast or something. So over the weekend, I noticed that my lights were just even more getting worse. And I would come home, and when I pulled up next to the garage, I could see that there was barely anything there. So I had to go to Holland on Saturday night, and that drive, I was coming down at sunset. So the sun's going down and I'm going, and I'm like, I don't have any headlights. I think they're gone now. I have high beams, and then I have these tiny little indicator lights on the sides. It's like a little swipe of LED light, right? So then I'm like, crap, how am I going to get home? Like, it's late in Holland, Michigan, where everything closes down. And I thought it might be a fuse. So I had my son, like, I took pictures of the fuse box and pictures of the manual, and I was trying to figure all this out. Anyway, so I had to drive home with no regular beams, 30 miles, mostly divided highway. So I would just keep them on high beam when it was divided. And if someone passed me, I would turn it on to those little indicator lights and then use their headlights as long as I could.
Right.
And then switch back to my high beams. So I got into Grand Rapids, where there's lots of street lights and lots of cars, and it's no longer a divided highway. So I had them down to the indicator, and I passed a policeman. I'm like, I know he's pulling me over. Like, I just know it. And sure enough, he did. And he said, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, yeah, it's my headlights. He goes, yeah. So anyway, I said, yeah, here are my choices. I can either flash everybody with my high beams or be invisible. So right now I'm choosing invisible as opposed to offending the hundreds of people around me right now. So I got off without a ticket. And then today I went to AutoZone, and turns out I needed new headlights. And now I'm like, wait a minute, the cataracts are not a problem at all. It was the headlights all along. So if you're having trouble, just replace your headlights. It's very simple. Don't do what I did.
In our case, it's the headlight switch, which no longer carries enough current. So because headlights.
That's why I was thinking fuse, you know, like I'm like, I don't think this is the bulbs, but it was.
Yeah, in our case, it's the headlights either work or don't work. They're just light bulbs. And if they're glowing, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the wiring. But it's real common on a MGB to grab a hold of the headlight switch, and oh my gosh, it's like really hot, you know, because the resistance is real high and not enough electricity can get through. I'm glad you got home safely.
It was scary. I did not. I hate flashing people high beams, but it was not a good time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very kindly for tonight. And Blair, Blair still hung out to the very end here. Blair, thank you very, very much for your explanation. It wasn't until I saw Blair's presentation last year that I realized why I had purchased like $70 worth of LED bulbs over and over, thinking that every time I was going to get the correct result, because I was buying white ones and putting them behind my daughter's red lenses on the back of her MGB. No wonder I finally said, screw this. And I just put in old-fashioned incandescent 1157s. And I just didn't know that there were such things as red LED. I just didn't know. So it was a very illustrative last year. So, and I'm sure some people have learned a lot this year from your presentation too. So Blair, thank you very, very much.
Hey, John, I did email you that 5-pin diagram.
Okay, thanks.
So let me know if you got it. And yeah, that should work. I had to search the internet for it. Like you say, separate the wheat from the chaff. Somebody says put a 60-watt bulb in series. Yeah,
oh, yeah, sure. That would do it.
I'm gonna put that in my trunk. Yeah.
Yeah. What in a porcelain base, right? Go in your basement and find an old unused porcelain base, but it's got a pull cord on it, right? And every now and then that accidentally gets pulled, and then you get the chatter in your radio again. Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. All kinds of good stuff out there.
Enjoyed it tonight.
Hey, it's a real pleasure. Went on for 2 hours and a half, like usual. I was put down on Zoom. It's a 2-hour meeting, but it goes out. So Doug Clark, did you hang out to the very end? Are you still there? Is Doug still on?
Night, John.
Good night. See you later, Doc. No, Doug's not on tonight, but while Blair was speaking, I looked at it, we got 230 at the peak. It was a bell curve, you know. People came in a little late, and then later on, you know, people I guess watching said, "Oh, yeah, I gotta go," or you know, doorbell's ringing. So anyway, Blair, thanks for bringing in a group of new people, and thanks everyone here. Please go to the website when you have a chance and press the PayPal button. I dearly would appreciate that. And
thank you, John.
Yep.
Great meeting, John. Thanks, Blair. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Our overseas people today included the fellow from New Zealand, so that was fun. And we got spread out between Mexico, continental U.S. and Canada, so that was nice. So very nice. Thanks, everybody. And we'll have this up on YouTube. Oh, I could just do it when I turn it off, but I won't. So it'll be tomorrow before I actually do it. And if you want some more information about anything that happened tonight or contact information or anything, just, you know, get in touch and I'll do the very best I can. So everybody, thanks very much. We can sit here and chat just a little bit at the end, and then I'm gonna hit goodbye.
Adios,
Thanks, John. Thank you. Good night.
Good night,
Rodolfo,
John.
it's a real pleasure. Dan, see you later. Thank you. Rodolfo, it's a real pleasure always to have you on. Absolutely.
Now it's a privilege for me being here. See you.
Oh, Ron Nugent, I see you on there. Yep, thanks.
Oh, there, John.
Yep, yep. And Jim, I see you there from Altoona, PA. Yep, yep. And
Salt Lake.
Stu Cole, I see, oh my gosh, just as soon as I said his name, he was gone. How very nice is that? I hadn't heard from him for a while. David Sander, thank you for being on tonight. Bob Forsblom, thank you for being on tonight. So anyway, to everybody, thanks.
Thanks,
And
John.
Good night, John. Thank you.
our next meeting will be, I'm just taking a look right now. Will it be the 6th of March? Yeah, why not? Probably. Seems to line up okay, I think. I don't know. Let me look at my calendar. Doesn't make a big difference right now, but I'll let you know that I still use a paper calendar. The kids all can use their phones. It's just so amazing. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be home on the 6th or not. No, I've got it scheduled on the 13th. I've got it scheduled in my book on the 13th, so it'll be 3 weeks before we do our next Zoom. So anyway, thanks very much, everybody.
Good night, John.
Peter Price, very nice. Thank you for, Peter, thank you very kindly for your donation. And
You're welcome, John. Thank you.
nice to have you on. So thanks for your continued updates about the modern MGs. But it's only Rodolfo who's driven one. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, all right. Crystal, nice to see you on tonight. It's always a
Good
pleasure.
night.
Yep, night. Okay, everybody.
Good night.